Here they come, thunder again. Thundering.
Ashton, I'm gonna send you an email with the packet.
Oh, you space for there, very, oh my goodness, I'm the red on Ken, oh geez, we're gonna fill up.
You know, the town was in silent for years.
Oh, I know, I
Did you know
just
that?
realized
Yeah.
what that meant.
Yeah, he welcomed.
Oh, my goodness. What a man. Hi, Ken. Yeah.
No, I think
Awesome.
Probably
I think.
On there.
Yeah, so far. Two. No. Yes. Yeah,
They just handed out
the last one.
yeah.
Oh, what, the packets?
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have to share with packets. Kind of, you know, you guys have, we don't need all three, yeah. I was doing like one table because these they actually have. So here's an extra one.
We'll get started because it's already passed. I'll do what Devin does. We'll wait till, no, I'm just kidding. After. I think everybody knows I've met everybody in here, but if I haven't, my name's David Case. I'm the principal broker out in Jacksonville for Windermere. I'm not super formal in anything I do, to be honest. So I wanted to start with maybe if anybody has any questions, like just in general, maybe about me, or about, you know, kind of their process and listing. If not, I'll get into it and then we can take questions at the end, if that's good. Yeah.
It's not a question, well, I guess it's a question, but it's just looking like as you go through it.
Yeah.
Like maybe you can point some of these things out. So I think one of the toughest questions is what makes you different than any other real estate agent? Because we all do the same thing as far as like how we list our house for the most part.
Sure.
You know what I mean, as
Yeah.
far as, you know, we take professional pictures, we put it on all, you know.
Yeah.
And all that, goes to Zillow, goes to Realtor. So it's that differentiation that I would be curious about how you stand out.
Okay. Can everybody on Zoom hear? Like when somebody.
Yep.
Okay. So I can get into like that part. That seems like more like once you have the listing and listing.
Well, actually,
Right.
no, it's more of like, if they're trying to hire, you know, if you're trying to get them to hire.
Like
you,
what are they seeing from the outside? If
Well,
that,
why would they hire you?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. I've done this job for 10 years now, just wondering when it was gonna end.
Oh,
Right, so I'm not
okay.
any different than anybody in this room, like that self-doubt or just wondering about the market. I mean, it's a daily, I don't want to say struggle, it's just, I think it also kind of keeps you moving. Wanting to just do your best, right?
Yeah,
I think if there's just one single piece of advice, as far as like when I look at myself compared to other people, is just my ability to be comfortable in any situation. I get nervous like anybody else, right? I've gone into listing appointments like totally unsure of myself. But just being able to connect with people and on any spectrum, personality wise. And I've had clients that I don't get along with, right? I don't agree politically, religiously, whatever it might be, but like that's never going to show. So I think a lot of people's number one mistakes is like they think it's about them. When like really the less you can share your own opinion that's not related to real estate, I think the further you can go, right? Especially like when you start forming relationships with people. So if I had to pick out one thing that was like I think different, and obviously I haven't sat in a room with each one of you or any other agent other than Sandy, and had an interview with somebody. It's not like you get to sit on a panel, right, and get to hear other people's questions and answers. Is just that becoming comfortable in any situation. And I don't even think that's a confidence thing. Obviously you have to have confidence, but just being able to talk to anybody at any time. I've always been that way. Part of that was just the way I was raised, my dad's business and going to door and having to sell things to strangers. But I can tell you that like a lot of you, I think, or some of you are on the Zillow team or have been on the Zillow team, like that is like the last thing I want to do from a standpoint of like reading a script and like having somebody listen to my phone call and critique me and like for my personality, like I don't want to hear it. I know what I like to do and how I like to do it. And I don't win every listing. But I think from a standpoint of how many interviews do I go on to how many do I win? And a lot of it's credited to Sandy too. I don't want to sit here and say like by myself. It just starts with that, like being comfortable in your own skin and then being comfortable enough to really know that you can find common ground with anyone. Because every single appointment's different, which kind of segues into like my first point about like winning a listing is your main point should be going in there, finding out their why are they selling, what their motivation is, what their next step is, because that not only could lead into like helping you win the listing because they're also going to buy something, but it shows like you're interested more than just like, tell me about your house, I'll get you a CMA and we'll see where this goes. It's like you want to start forming that personal relationship right away. And I think in the age of AI and everybody's scared that AI is going to take their job, especially in the white collar sector, anything relationship based is not going anywhere. Are there going to be regulations that change it and make it harder? Yes. And I think we've constantly faced that. But going in and just having the ability to think outside of the box of like, okay, I'm only here to do a transaction, which on the surface, yes, that's what we are. We're transactional. We aren't supposed to get emotional. We aren't supposed to get, tied into these things other than what the goal of the seller is. But I think counterintuitively, you have to go in there wanting to form a friendship. And I think some agents forget that and they get stuck on like, okay, I have a box I need to stay in and I need to get through my checklist. And you can ask Sandy, I'm not a checklist person. The checklist that I'm sharing, she created. I'm really not a processes person. Like I know how I do it. Like people ask like, what CRM are you using? And it's like, it's right here. And that's not for everybody. So don't take away thinking you have to do things like I do it, because for some people, and it'll probably change as I get older and I can't remember everything. I'll probably need to start writing it down, and I'm acutely aware of that. But yeah, I think step one is being comfortable walking into any situation. My advice for that is, if you're not somebody who's ever done door-to-door sales and you're still kind of struggling with like connecting with people, is practice it everywhere you go. Grocery store, kids event, social event, like make a point to go talk to people you've never met before, and strike a conversation. And even through the awkward moments, because I have them too, because other people sometimes don't want to be talked to, but if you can push through that like barrier with anybody at any time, a listing appointment is going to become super easy because they're already motivated to hire you. But they're gonna interview 3 of you, right? So it's going to be a little different each time. But yeah, I'm the guy at the grocery store that will talk to somebody about the pick up they drive. My wife hates it. She'd rather shop online and order her groceries, right? Especially because of that. But if you can put yourself in those situations outside of your job, I think like start there. Just like I'm sure like with the Zillow, like practicing your calls and doing that. For me, I'd rather go do it real and natural. And some of you may feel like you're really confident already there. That's fine. If you're already there where you feel like you're not catching yourself, like trying to like think of things to talk about in your listing appointment that aren't just about the transaction, there's other things you can work on. But just if you're not somebody yet that's super comfortable talking to people that you don't know, like that's number one. Like I would not worry about anything else. You're going to learn the contracts, you're going to learn all the other processes, but nobody here or a class can teach you how to talk to people. And I think that's like as a real estate broker and winning a listing until you get like that comfortable spot. And I've been in some awkward positions. And I'll be honest too, don't be afraid to leave a listing. If you're like, this is not what I'm going to sign up for, this is not who I want to work for, or you just get the heebie-jeebies in the house, make an excuse, get out of there, because it's not worth putting yourself through that. You know, and that's coming from somebody that in the beginning, I'm like, I'm going to sell I'm going to sell any, I don't care if it's a shack in the middle of Selma. Like if somebody wants to hire me to sell it, I'm going to do it. And in the beginning, you have that attitude because you need to make money and you want to have transactions, and transactions equal more opportunity. But know yourself too. So yeah, number one, learn how to talk to people. Even if it's like, I know how to talk to people, but it's like, do you know how to break the ice? Do you know how to go in there and get them to talk to you? Because like the more that they feel a connection, the more likely they are to hire you. Yes, there are going to be a few buyers or sellers, excuse me, that like they want to know your production and they're comparing you to this agent that's doing it for 25 years and they see their billboard, and you know, you're not going to compete with that on a standpoint of production alone, but you can definitely compete with it on a service level and a personality level, that if you're easy to talk to and you have enough experience where like you can show that, yes, I can do the job, you're going to win a lot more listings just based on your own personality than basically like what your history of the job is. Because like I started, I didn't, I think I sold 2 things the first 8 months I was licensed. And I tried to do a part-time job here and do that. And like a lot of people do, I couldn't jump in. But once I jumped in full time and I was getting appointments and I hadn't sold anything, I couldn't come and say, look at my numbers, you know, I'm proven this way. It was just all, you know, personality. And I really don't like the term fake it till you make it. I know a lot of people like use that term in real estate because you don't want people necessarily to know you're brand new, and your friends and your family, everybody's going to know you're new. But really build the confidence just to talk to people. Like the basics of real estate, you know, how you market, you know, what the market is like. I mean, learn and make sure you have that knowledge. But you don't have to really stress about like the finer things until you actually have the listing. Because once they sign it, they're really tied to you. So I would start there. Number 2, I don't have it written down. Obviously, I just said that, but have your process. Like, how are you going to go through your appointment? My advice is get to know them first. And then, you know, you're going to take a tour of the property or the house. And then you're going to go through the questions. Like we go through these questions with our clients just so we have the facts. And I can tell you that I've had multiple clients come after the fact and be like, you were the only agent that took notes. You're the only one that wrote anything down about the property. And like something that small can get you hired, that you have an attention to detail. So when I say I don't have checklists, I still have a process where you want to show that you're going to take the care, even though you don't have the job yet. Just like when we do a CMA, a lot of times you don't know if they're going to list with you yet. You're doing a CMA, and sometimes the CMA dictates whether you get the listing. So make sure you go in there, you form that kind of quick bond with them if you can, and then you go through your process, and whether it be questions first or a tour of the house first or both at the same time. Not every single appointment is going to be the same. So you kind of have to feel out what the seller wants to do. And there's going to be times where they don't really want to give you a tour of the house. They're like, yeah, go walk around. So like you lose that ability to have conversation as you walk. And so you have to think of other things when you get done. Sometimes I'll ask questions I already know the answers to, just so we can start a conversation. So go through your listing appointment like you normally would. And again, everybody's process, you know, is different, and anybody's system of like timeline in the appointment can work. But it's important to show that you're interested, regardless of what it is. Build that relationship with them as quickly as possible. And then you've got to try to do something, if you're not the last interview, to like leave an impression. And this is one of the spaces like me and Sandy differ a ton. Like I will take the packet with me, like the listing packet, the listing agreement. And I will try to get them to sign it while I'm there. Like, why wouldn't you sign? Why, you know, like ask the question if and there are people like, I'm not signing anything today. Right. And I've got people to sign it, even though I said they weren't going to sign anything, because they're like, at the end of it, they're ready to go. But I would always just bring it just in case. If nothing else, you can leave it with them to review so they know, or go over it so they know what they're signing. I know a lot of agents, and I've been guilty of this, is they've never explained to a seller what they're signing. They've never gone through it paragraph by paragraph explaining what it actually means. You're either appointment, then you meet again, you sign a listing agreement, and you go over the nuts and bolts, how much they're going to pay you, how much you're going to list the house for, how much time you're going to get to sell the house. But a lot of sellers really appreciate knowing that like we have no liability, right? We have like as far as their house, they got to lock their own doors, they got to keep insurance. We're indemnified by all of that. It's a really airtight contract to protect us. It doesn't protect them at all. So I'm not saying go out and say that right to them,
Not the best.
but figure out a way to convey that this is what you're signing, and make sure that you can explain it because a lot of them are going to ask, but a lot of them just get stuck on how long they're signing up with you for and how much they're going to owe you when it's done.
And so when you go to the listing, if you don't know the price yet, how do you bring the listing packet with you for them to sign if you don't not sure what you're gonna list it for yet? Because that's normally one of the number one things they want to know.
Yeah. So and again, big difference between me and Sandy is she'll never spit out a price without going back and really focusing on her CMA. And that could be the case for sure with really unique properties. But you should have looked up if you're selling a house in a neighborhood, right? And there's 12 comps that sold last year. You should have already looked that up and you have an idea in your head probably where price range they could sell for. And remember, you can put a price in that listing agreement and then change it later. So you can have that discussion if you're comfortable, if you've already looked. A lot of times I'll take my iPad, or I've already done a CMA because there were so many comps, or because they bought the house 2 years ago and the picture is still in MLS. Like it's situational.
Do you use Presents?
I use three different options. So I use Present if I want to do it on my iPad. I use RPR if I'm on the go and I have to do it from my phone. And then I use the MLS CMA if there's somebody who I know is they want numbers. They don't need the foo-foo. They don't care. They want to see what things sold for, how long they're on the market. And again, it's hard to know. So I don't ever bring a CMA with me unless I've had that discussion already. And normally if I do, it's probably somebody I've already worked with. But I base off how I'm going to do it based on the client. Investors, people selling investment properties, I just use the MLS because they just want to see, again, the stats. They don't need to be explained the market or the walkability or, the schools. They don't care about any of that. If there's somebody that I meet that I know is more into the tech side of things, like they like the presentation, then I'll use Present. And then as far as RPR, I rely on really if I'm on the go because it's the easiest one to use like on the move. And they have a really cool new AI feature that you can go in and use and then modify to fit what you want, or if you don't agree with it. But so I would know all three and use all three. And I know it's kind of a pain, kind of like the forms to go back and forth. But it gives you more flexibility as well. And all of those are free to you. Right, the Windermere one is included in your dues. I shouldn't say free; it's included. RPR, same thing, included in your NAR dues. You're not paying any extra for it. And then obviously the MLS one is built in.
And I know all of them, so if you ever wanted to have
Yeah.
a small group class or one-on-one, let me know. And
I don't think I've ever heard of the RPR one.
Yeah,
yeah, I used to use it
Yeah.
exclusively.
They have an app.
online.
I'm also very phone based, and I know a lot of people want to sit at a computer and do it. And then everybody does their CMAs different as far as like how much information they want to put on it. Sandy's very detailed, puts all the information on the email or the CMA. And I'm like, I want them to call me. So I'm going to send you the information and then you call and ask your questions. I'll explain how I got to where I got. And you get put in some tough positions, right? Because you're going to lose listings to people who simply overprice things. Nothing you can do about it. Happened to me and Sandy a lot when we first were partners. And it normally was one or two agents that we were competing with. And after a while, when those things sat on the market and they end up reducing lower than our recommended price from the get-go, people learn. Like they're not dumb, especially in a small market like Jacksonville. You get a reputation. So you don't want to just take a listing and have it sit on the market, even though that's your best form of advertising. So you want to be somewhere. I always try to be in the middle of what the comps are saying. And just explain like, yeah, we have this high end range. Maybe it's dependent on what you're willing to do to the house, or maybe it's how long you want to be on the market. I also will write into a listing agreement how long I'm going to give them before we need to reduce the price, and they have to basically agree to it preemptively. So we can have,
Yeah.
well, so we can, even if we don't actually go follow it, we have the conversation, and I have something in writing that said we had the conversation because people will forget. They'll sit there and then you'll lose listing and they're like, you should have told me to do it sooner. And it's like, I've been telling you since the beginning you were overpriced, but I was willing to try for you, especially on those unique ones. You know, like in Jacksonville, we have a lot of HC zone properties that are also able to use for commercial or they're residential or, you know, so you don't
What'd
really
you call
know.
them?
They're HC zone, historic core.
Oh, I was wondering what that meant.
So-
It's historically.
Yeah,
zoned?
historic
Okay.
core. So,
Historic core.
Core.
is what HC means. And so those ones can be unique where you are willing to price it a little higher because of the flexibility. Or other reasons, and we've had clients push for a higher price and we've gotten it. We've lost listings where we said, it's way too high, and then they put on the market somebody else and they sell it. So we're not perfect by any means, but you kind of always have to trust your instinct and your gut or run it by somebody that you trust. I remember, what was it? I think my first listing was actually a buyer I met at one of my listings it was my second listing. I met him at open house at my first listing. And they had me come do a comp on their house because they wanted to buy the house that I had listed. And they in their mind, they were leaving $100,000 on the table. Like that's how much lower they thought their house was worth. And I actually called because I was like, am I that far off? Like, or do they not know the market? It turned out they didn't know the market. So I called David Frimmer, who was in our office in Jacksonville at the time. And I'm like, hey, will you look at this? Because like, I'm pretty confident, but like their lack of confidence is making me question whether I'm way off base. And he's like, no, it looks good based on comps. And we put on the market and it went pending in one day. $100,000 more than what they thought it was worth. And so, you know, you become a hero to them, right?
That doesn't
So-
happen very.
No, it does not in this market. This was, I think
I
this,
mean, people always think their house
2017.
is worth more than it is.
yeah. Well, I think they had been there a while and, you know, they paid such a small amount for it. There's just like, no way it could be worth that much. I think they wanted 400 and I said, we need to list for 499. And it was like kind of a back and forth. There's like, are you sure we really want that house that you have listed? And we don't want to miss it. And it turned out to be fine. So, and really, to be honest, it's kind of good to know backstory. Like that transaction was really what solidified me staying in real estate because I was waffling so hard in the beginning because it was like not guaranteed income. You know, the market always goes up and down. I have family members who were in the market through 2008 and lost everything because they were all the way invested like to the gills. And so like seeing them go through that, my own parents lost their house, like not sure, like, is this the right spot? You know, and I've got a new baby and like that was kind of my driving factor for finding another career. But when that house sold, so the house I had listed was one of my best friend's house that passed away. And his wife, whose sister-in-law was a realtor for 20 years, she didn't list it with her. She listed it with me because that's what he wanted. And so like just that kind of relationship already there, and then wanting to deliver so hard because of all those reasons, not even real estate related, and then to have somebody come buy it. So I was able to double end it, and then I was able to sell their house, and I got 2 paychecks at one time, and I mean, you guys can do the math. It was for me at, I think I was 26 years old. Like that's like,
This is it.
somebody like wake me up because this is not me. No, I sat out here right in front of the office and cried. Like it was just like,
Okay.
I can't believe like this is how easy it can be. And it wasn't more of like easy that it's like you put all this time and effort at a job. You only make so much an hour. I had worked sales jobs before. And the funny things about those jobs is like you do a really good job for a while and all of a sudden they want to change the pay structure. You have no control. Like I started my first sales job at Sears and I was making like at 17, 18 years old, I was making like $3,500 a month in sales. And like at the time, like that's crazy money, right? And I remember they came back like, oh, we're going to up your hourly wage to like $15 an hour, but pay you this much on sales. And I was like, this is terrible. Like I did it for a while, but I was like, it's not. And I had a hard time keeping a job just because I would get in situations where like I wasn't in control of anything. And that's what I love about real estate. Like I am in control of my business. Kind of off track from the point, but like when you believe in yourself that much and you believe in what you do, you know, I think people can see it and you know, they connect with that you're passionate. You're not there just to get a transaction, even though all of us just want to make money. Like that's the reason we're here. But figuring out what you're doing with like the success you have will drive, more motivation. But so going from there, you've gone in, you've made a relationship with them, you've done your homework, you've asked the questions. If you're not somebody that can get a listing signed right then, because maybe you didn't have a previous relationship, or it's just not the right time, you're not, you don't feel like pushing it. The next step is what you go back and you do your CMA. I try to get mine done as fast as possible. I normally ask for like 48 hours. And we all know you can do a CMA as fast as you want, or you can take your time. And depending on the situation, you may need to take your time because it's super unique. And then I'll email the CMA if that's what they wanted. I make sure I call when I email it and ask them if they, if they have any questions to please call me. Or depending on the client, I'll push to meet them again in person and go over it. That might be because I can tell that that's probably what they would prefer. They're older. They don't want to sit and read through an email. Or I might know like, there's going to be like quite a bit of competition here. I should make that connection again and take the time. So I'll print it, go make an appointment, go to their house, or ask if they want to come to the office. And then that's a second opportunity to like bond with them again. And so just thinking of like things in between the two appointments, maybe they have kids or grandkids that play sports, and you bring up things that aren't related to the transaction or to what you're trying to, and again, read the room, know the client at that point, whether they want to talk about those things or if they want to just get down to business. Because depending on your client, you may not have to do that. But I think the more you get in front of them before they have decided who they're going to go with, the better off you are. I've taken flowers to people because of their situation, and just want to stop by, like, and check in, here's some flowers. And I've had that win me listings before. And I know that some people feel like that can be like superficial, but I actually mean it. Like when I go over there, like whether you hire me or not, like I wanted to bring you flowers because of this thing you're going through, or a text because they said they were going to this kid's, college sporting event or whatever. And it's like, how did they do, and not even ask about, the transaction. I think those touches can go a really long way. Yeah.
Hey, David, do you offer like different packages at 2.5 or 3%? Do you do that different packages for your clients? So you have a
Depends on
flat rate and
it depends on if Sandy's in the room with me. And she'll like she's not shy about it. She thinks 2.5 is plenty. She will never ask for 3%.
Right.
And I'm of the mind that if I'm going to be there to show the property every time, I'm not doing it for less than 3. I've had other situations where I've got more than 3 because of the drive. Because of like back when we signed one listing agreement for one fee and then we split it. If I could sign a 6%, right? But I knew I was going to be driving an hour to show it every single time. I'm going to keep 3.5. And I'm going to give 2.5 I never paid less than 2.5 to the buyer's agent. That's kind of the office policy. You negotiate what you want at the time, right? When we dictated who got what, but don't ever offer less than 2.5. And there have been exceptions, right? You get a $3 or $4 million sale, there's exceptions to that. You're not going to get 6% probably at the time. But to answer your question, it really, the only time I've charged more than the 2.5 or asked for it is if I know it's going to take up my own personal time to go and show the property. Or I can just tell this client is going to be an absolute handful. And if they're not willing to pay me the extra to take care of their needs, because a lot of agents won't be able to meet what they need, then I'm not going to put myself out there like that. We've had other situations where we've had listings before and they expired. And normally it's like the property has issues. And Sandy's background is land use planning, where we've gone from a 2.5 to a 3 to relist it for them. A lot of people are like, I'm going to lose a listing, it expires. That's not always the case. Like, yeah, they can blame you because it didn't sell. Everybody does. But when you come across a property that's really unique or has these problems that they don't want to go back through all of it with another agent, and so not only did we raise the commission, but we also got a retainer prepaid that we would credit towards the commission when and if we sold it, because it needed some planning stuff done at the county. And I mean, I'm lucky to have Sandy because her background is in land use planning, so they didn't have to go hire an outside person and pay them even more money. So you have situations like that. I get it, to ask for more, you have to be really confident in your ability. You know, and I've also had those questions from people, well, what if I paid you 3% if you sold it in 6 months, but if you sold it in a month, I paid 2.5. It's like, do you want me to sandbag your listing? And you don't want that, right? And if people,
Why would you incentivize?
yeah, you want, especially if like your motivation is to sell the property
Right.
and you want to sell it for the most money at the time, the market will dictate that.
Yeah.
You know, we can't control it. There's no magic sauce. And really, you know, I know a lot of agents want to go in there and say me, but it's really not. It's like, how many buyers are out there that want that house? You know, 21, we were multiple offers every day on everything. It didn't matter. People who had never sold anything in their life, right? And they've been licensed for years, were selling 10 or 15 properties that year, right? So, and people were asking that, like, oh, you know, like it's going to sell in today. I'm going to have multiple offers. Why do I need to pay you? It's like, you don't pay me to put pictures on MLS. You pay me to negotiate the best deal for you and make sure it closes. You know, we had one Friday that we put on and we had an offer. We had 2 offers by Sunday, went pending. And they always make the joke, like, this is your easiest transaction yet. And I'm always like, yeah, we don't know that yet. You know, and if it's easy for me, that means it's really easy for you. But you don't pay us to put photos online. And a lot of people are caught up, like, what do you market? It's like, I market everything on social media. I've never sold a listing on social media. You know, I had a client recently list with an agent out of Portland. They moved to Portland, bought a house, decided it's not for them, put it back on the market. I sent them a solid referral, a guy I trust that I would list with, that my in-laws have listed with out of Portland. And he went with a guy on social media that had like 300,000 followers on Instagram. We pulled the guy's stats. He sold 3 houses last year.
Oh my gosh.
So I mean, he's an influencer. He's not a real estate broker.
Yeah.
And then it turned out they list the house and it's like, his idea was, let's start high and then drop the house every week by $1,000.
Oh.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of attention. They're getting showings, but they end up a loss of like $27,000 based on where he could have priced it and sold it. So I don't get too caught up. Do you need a presence? Yes. You know, you guys can go on mine. It's not fancy, right? It's listing photos, sometimes in a video, sometimes it's a slideshow, sometimes, and it's like, as long as people kind of know, and there are going to be people that, like, I still have people like, hey, how's that real estate thing working out? And I'm like, that's all right. You know, I mean, what am I going to say? You know, it's actually great. Like, if they don't know I'm doing it, then it's probably not worth like telling them how good I am at it, right? The people who care and watch, right? I still believe, I never took Ninja, but I still believe in influencing your sphere, especially for listings. You want your name to come up anytime it's brought up. So that, you know, I like organic touches, like, you know, lenders, you go talk to some of the lenders, they'll tell you I've told them not to call me. Like, if you don't have anything to actually talk to me about, I have a nice day. Like, I don't need to spend 15-20 minutes every Monday with 5 different lenders giving me a sales call. I'm not going to do that to my client, right? If I see something on social media or I hear something about them, I'm going to shoot a text off. I'm going to call them, you know, because I think that natural touch, like that really like organic, like they appreciate that, not the weekly phone call about how the market is, you know, unless that's what they want. If they just have nobody to talk to, knock your socks off, you know, like, but people like natural, they like that organic. You run into them at a store, like, even if it's somebody you don't necessarily jive with, but they're your client or we're your client, like, go up, say hi, shake their hand, come up with something to talk about, you know, and just invite them to something once a year. That's what I always do. Like, Sandy does her thing in Jacksonville, which is great because we have such different client base being the 2 of us. Even though we share everything and do everything together, like who we bring to the table. Like, I do a baseball game at the Ropes for my clients, right? A firework night, that kind of thing. And they know it. They get an invite once a year. Like, I'm not doing an event 4 or 5 times a year like some agents do. And it's like anything else. I think there's so many different ways, you know, to do it. So hopefully that's
working like right away with Sandy.
No, so Sandy was in real estate, I think, for like 3 or 4 years before we became partners. And then I had been in it 2 years. And there was a couple driving forces behind that. Really, we owe Don Livingood a bunch of credit because Sandy joined the office and was like, I'm too busy by myself. I'd like to team up with somebody. And he was like, if I'm going to team up with anybody, it's going to be David. He's newer, but like, he watched my process as I was in the office every day doing floor time, You know, I was always asking agents for advice. I was always willing to go do things for the other agents in the office. And so that's just serendipitous that it worked out, because most partnerships don't when you're not related, you know, or for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I think the average lifespan of a 2-person team in real estate is like 2 years. You know, and normally what happens is you just aren't on the same page where it comes to like how much I want to work and how much money I think I should make. Because you'll get a team member who's killing it and maybe one that's struggling, and they can't figure out a way to pull their weight in other ways, right? Sandy and I are lucky enough that, and she doesn't care, but I run the numbers every year. It's almost always 50-50, 49-51 about who did more business. It's almost always right there. And then the fact that we trust each other, we know we're in it for the right reasons, we're very honest with each other and with our clients. That made it good. Like if you could find the perfect partner, I would tell everybody to get a partner. Because it makes being able to go away and spend time with your family, just for that reason, totally worth paying somebody to be your partner. But a lot of agents have a hard time letting go, especially 50%. You have to find the right person. In the beginning, it was funny. We tried to only do it on listings and keep our own buyers. And it was like, we can't. There's no way to like, because if you need to go to a listing appointment and I'm with my buyer, like that's going to take precedent, right? But if we're sharing everything, okay, now we can make it work. Right. And we both would tell you we worked way too much. We still do. We have a hard time setting that boundary of like when enough is enough. And we didn't hire somebody to help TC until this last July, because it just got, last year was the best year we ever had. And we couldn't tell you why, other than just like working towards that goal, right? To be like the agent in a place or the team. But we should have got an assistant a long time ago. It would have made things a lot easier, but it's so hard to find that person. But again, if you can test the waters with somebody that you think is as driven as you are and willing to dedicate the time and has the same values as you, I would tell anybody to find a partner. And then just really work through that first 6 months to 12 months where you're sharing everything, you know?
Communication.
So, when you guys think about like, pre-listing inspections and maybe staging and that kind of stuff, would the seller incur that charge then, or is that part of your program? Or
We've done it multiple ways. I'm not huge on staging. I don't think there are scenarios, right? If you're going to sell a multi-million-dollar home that might be empty when you're trying to sell it, it might be a little tougher, but normally the seller will have enough furniture that you can just pare it down. We have somebody we would pay to consult to come in and stage with the seller's own stuff. I paid for staging honestly one time, where I was like, I'll take care of it. But it was a pretty unique situation where a client had bought a house from me, gave a rent back. Some things went south during the rent back. They decided because of the situation, they weren't even going to move into the house, and they had the means to do this. And it was $1.5 million house. And before they even sold that house, they bought another $1.5 million house from me. And then I'm listing this other one right away after I just got paid to sell it to them. So I'm like, and he was like, it's empty. What happened is they moved out after the rent back. They took a bunch of furniture they weren't supposed to. And so they were like, it can't be sold empty. We have to stage it. So I ended up, and it's a lot of money. It's $4,500 just to stage this. And based on who we used was a big part of it. But as far as somebody who can decorate and like just the best eye, you're gonna find. So I didn't want to kind of go cheap and like regret it. I'm not a huge on the virtual staging yet. I just don't think that it's there where it actually looks, natural. And then you show up to a house and it's empty and these pictures look great, but the house already looks different enough from your photos, right? Even if you're taking the most neutral photos, that it's never the same, good or bad. So to add virtual staging, I'm not, but to answer your question, if somebody would be super adamant, I'm going to write in there that, we'll stage it. They're going to incur that cost if we don't sell the house,
Okay.
Yeah. And then on the inspection side of it, pre-inspections, not very often do we recommend it unless it's like an estate and they just don't want any surprises. Or they're, again, elderly, they don't want any surprises. Even if we're not going to fix everything, we can give that inspection, but a lot of people still end up having their own, so sometimes it feels like a waste of money. But we've never paid for that up front. I do like the new listing agreement because you can write in a termination fee if they preemptively terminate. So you could cover yourself there. Same with being reimbursed for your photography and your marketing. We've never exercised it if we can't sell a listing. And I would never hold somebody into a listing if for whatever personal reasons they can't sell anymore.
Yeah.
And we've been lucky enough that people haven't come to us and be like, we just want to go a different direction and sell with somebody else, like while we're still listed.
Yeah.
Because I would exercise it then. But we haven't had to do that.
So if someone asks you like how, like, why should I hire you? Or your main thing is like, well, it's not how I'm gonna market your house, really. It's really just how I'm gonna negotiate and get you to closing and get your.
So main points, kind of, I mean, there are still a lot of agents who don't do any social media. So you can touch on that, be like, well, I do use targeted. So I use targeted marketing, which is a little different than just putting on Instagram. Whether it be AdWorks or through Google Ads, like you can actually target an audience. You can't do that anymore on social media. There's limits to that. You have to advertise to basically everyone, even if they're not looking to buy a house. And I went back and forth with them on like commercial properties because I'm like, this isn't for everybody. This is for a target audience. Like, too bad. It's a housing opportunity because again, a lot of the HC zone stuff are still a house, but when we sell it, sometimes they're just commercial use. So I go on and I use targeted marketing, just like if you've shopped or said anything around your phone, and now those products are popping up on your like Google or on your feeds and Instagram and Facebook. So I'm not going to say again that it sells, but people like to hear that.
Well, I'm just asking, like, if they ask me why should I hire you over this person? Like, what are you gonna do for me? How are you gonna sell my house for me?
So the biggest thing I think that both Steve and I hit on is this is going to be either a really easy experience or it's going to be a long drawn out one, and you need to be comfortable with your agent. You need to be able to communicate. Like, I need to tell you how I feel professionally, and you need to be able to tell me what you need out of us. And we still have people that will hide like they're in foreclosure. We just listed their house. We don't find out until the title report comes out. So there are exceptions to those things where people, but the biggest thing is anybody's going to put on most agents. Here's how I go over it. Doesn't matter who you sign with. Most agents are going to get a professional photographer to come in here. They're going to put the photos on MLS, and then they're going to be done marketing your house.
So you tell them that out straight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's going to go to Zillow on its own. I don't have to push a button.
But then I would say you do the same.
Yeah. So what we start there, I say any agent really is going to do these things for you because it's kind of standard. It's a box, bare minimum. And in most of the markets since 2017, agents have been lucky enough that that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Because the buyer agent is the one that's going to bring you the buyer. So what sets us apart is beyond just putting your stuff on the MLS and letting it compute to Trulia and Zillow and Realtor.com, is we are going to make sure we've done all the due diligence on the property. It doesn't matter if it's from a inspection standpoint, obviously prior to a home inspection, or just giving you what you need to do. We're going to be honest about what the house will sell for. We're not going to give you an inflated price and you're going to sell in the market. We're going to chase the market. And then also, once we have a contract, once we have an offer, that is when our work really begins. And a lot of times I get to touch on it when they try to negotiate the commission, because a lot of them still don't understand that even though it's changed, nothing's really changed. They're still going to end up paying 5%, 99% of the time. So if you're asking me to take a discount, do you think it motivates me to sell your house for the most money? If I'm willing to discount what I'm worth to you right off the bat, and I've gotten through almost every question that way, that my value is reflected on what I think I can do for you. But essentially, you want to hire an agent you trust and negotiate, because that's the biggest part of the transaction, is negotiating and not just caving to every request. And I know some of us probably in here butted heads because you're like, you're not being reasonable. It's like, well, my job isn't to make you happy. My job is to do the best I can for my client. And even though your client might think it's not worth X, we've done the research, it is. So you can either pay that or we can go back on the market. Where a lot of agents that I've worked with, it's like, hey, here's what we think of your house. Here's the offer. And they come back and they're like, I'll do my best to get it accepted. It's like, okay, great. I'm the buyer's agent. That's great. But do you want, as a seller, to have an agent representing you like that? Right. And you have to be honest. Like, you have to tell them, you don't want to just tell them what they want to hear, but you have to emphasize that you are willing to sit and wait with them if they're being reasonable. Right? If we're $50,000 overpriced, first, I'm not going to take the listing. Right? But if we're overpriced and we've got 50 showings and no offers, we're going to reduce the price, or I'm going to go find another client to work for, because I don't want to work for free. And if you can't sell the house, you end up working for free. And again, I'm saying this very bluntly to you guys. I paraphrase it, and maybe not at the first meeting. But if they ask those questions, you have to just be confident in your answer and be able to come across in a way that's not going to totally rub them the wrong way.
Right.
But as far as what do you do different than anybody else does? How do I say this without offending people? I'm not lazy. And there are a lot of lazy real estate agents. They want to meet the photographer, take some pictures, put on MLS, call you when you have a showing, call you when you have a contract, and then meet you at the end of the signing table, or maybe not even show up. Right? So you can go have that experience, or you can have somebody that will treat this like, you would need an accountant to treat it, to be detailed, to know every in and out of the contract, to know what your job as a seller is. Once you're in contract, give you a timeline of events. I'm still shocked at the agents who don't give their client a timeline and what to expect, right? And then once we're in there, I'm here to negotiate not only the price, but the buyer who wants to renegotiate the price based on inspection, not ask for repairs, right? Not ask for a little credit, but they're like, now I want to pay what I actually want to pay for it, because that happens a lot, right? And then we meet every deadline. I try to hold the other agent accountable to meet those deadlines, and we make it to the closing table with as little heartache and as little price reduction on your end. I mean, that's really what we're supposed to be doing. And I think a lot of sellers get caught up in how much is it going to sell for and how soon is it going to sell? It's like, well, there's all this stuff in the middle that is way more important than the price, because the price is going to be what the buyer is willing to pay for it. We can list it for whatever, but until you find a buyer willing to pay what you're willing to accept, that will take care of itself. If you underprice it, you'll have multiple offers most of the time. You overprice it, you're going to sit on the market.
How do you handle, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Kaliko?
Do you have you're talking about value, kind of relaying what you do to the sellers, do you have a formal marketing plan, or is your first listing appointment the marketing plan where you talk about what you're gonna do?
I don't, like, we show up and I put one, we only take, this is what we take. So as far as like what we take to a seller, it's really just the Jacksonville Review, because most of our listings are in Jacksonville. We market, this is the only paper marketing we do, right? And then we take a few flyer samples, and then we take the handouts that I had Tara print for you guys, because those, of all the Windermere, we call it Windermere Fluff, of all the Windermere Fluff, I find those the most useful. How to price your property, and then how to market it online, and then how do we stack up with everybody else, right? Those are the big ones. I love the pond analogy, because all the stuff that's stagnant just goes to the bottom, right? And if you're like me, like I'm looking for an investment property, I'm looking at everything that's on the market 250 days plus, and I'm writing terribly low offers on them just to gauge if somebody's ready to sell or not, right? The pond analogy is great because you can stay ahead of the market. Come on market, your initial days on market, that's when you're fresh. That's when you're going to get the most attention. You don't want to be the guy that sinks to the bottom. So if that first month goes by and you haven't had an offer, you need to make a reduction, or you need to address whatever the problem is by getting feedback. But to answer your question about like a marketing plan, do you mean like a process of how I'm going to operate?
I mean, more applicable to like maybe type A sellers that don't want to know what you're gonna do and when it's gonna happen and what that looks like specifically for their house.
Yeah, so we go over the photography. I don't think a lot of agents go over in detail. Like, we get professional photography, we get a drone, we get a video, we put that all on, we market it. Your property has its own website dedicated. So when we make our flyer that has a QR code, and we always do a permanent flyer now, and people can scan the QR code, it goes to your property's website. It's not going to go to Zillow or the MLS, where you're going to be fighting for attention, right? And you still get a lot of drive-bys and people interested.
Can you explain a permanent?
Yeah, a permanent flyer is just the flyer we have that's paper, and we send it to Bear Printing, and they make an 11 by 17 corrugated plastic flyer that we attach to the sign post. So people can drive by and take a picture of that, or they can scan the QR code. And then, like, that's the initial, right? Photos, online, MLS. It goes to Zillow by itself. It goes to Realtor.com, Trulia. It goes to all those websites. Then we do a social media blast. We do an email blast to agents who haven't opted out of those emails. And then our office tours. And I don't lie to them. Like, I tell them like, I'm not huge. I don't have enough time with all I do to go to broker tour all the time. So I'm not at the MLS tour every week. But that's an option. If they feel strongly they want me to be there to, sell their house to that market, I'm happy to. And then same thing with open houses. I'm willing to have them, but it's not going to be me, right? We have agents who are hungry that want to meet buyers, and that's really what your open house is for. Again, a lot of agents wouldn't tell them that, but that's the truth. Is you get looky-loos or people starting their search. 2 houses in almost 10 years have I sold to somebody who came to an open house I hosted. The house they came and looked at. So that's kind of the order operations marketing wise. And then I always send stats if they want them. Like when we get on the market, if you want, because you have sellers who don't want to hear anything until the house has an offer. And then you have sellers who want to hear everything, right? I send them the Zillow stats, the day-to-day, how many views, how many saves. I send them the social media stats, again, how many likes, views, saves, that sort of thing. I let them know how many phone calls we got, how many emails we got. And I normally do that on a weekly basis if there's somebody who wants to hear it. Majority of people only care if they have an appointment to show the house or the property. And then again, what they think and why they're not writing an offer. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have a dashboard that you use, or is this just a phone call?
As far as
Like, you're just saying that you report back on how many likes and.
I just go in and screenshot it and I send them an email. So I go into each website and I screenshot the stats. Or I text it to them if there's somebody who wants via text. I'm exploring trying to figure out how to do it more professionally. The funny thing is that what I found is like me and Sandy have been working on years trying to get this our brand and then done so we can just grab one and go. So it's bound with the pages we want in it. We don't have enough time to sit down with the person that has designed it, or it's this is working, right? And essentially this is free, because it's provided to you by the office. The only thing you're paying for is the color copy photos or the flyers. But I would love to figure out and have the time to put together a snapshot, like what we get from MLS of their listing. But because we're pulling from so many different areas, the other feature that I bring up that most agents don't is the reverse prospecting feature on MLS. Again, not something that's necessarily going to sell the listing, but when I say we have a way to see who has been sent the email of your listing, not the client, but the agent, that even though it's automatic and the agent may not have even seen it went out, you can email those agents and say, hey, this fit the parameters of your client. Are they still looking? And I'd say 50-50, they respond. Sometimes they'll respond, yeah, they've already found something, or you'll get that random one that's like, can you remove me from your email list? Even though it's you're not on an email list, this is just from the MLS.
Yeah.
So I'd say if you want to bring something up, maybe no other agent has brought up, is reverse prospecting, that feature. Super easy. You go onto your dashboard MLS, you go down and you look under your listing. You'll see at the very bottom, it says reverse prospecting. Click on that. It'll bring up all your listings. You can highlight the listing. You can hit run, and it'll populate the agents who might have a client because your listing was sent to one of their clients. And then when you send an email, it actually puts their client's information, not you can't see it. They can see it of who it was sent to. So it will ring a bell if,
The
So-
other thing I was gonna say is if you're not techie or don't know how to get the analytics that you're talking about, you can go into List Track.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just click on List Track in the MLS menu. It's usually down at the bottom. Click on List Track, go to your listings, and then go into each one, and it has all of that analytics information in one place.
Yeah.
It's right there, and it looks fairly put together. So rather than recreating the wheel, just use
Yeah.
what
Is it
what you
editable?
got. Pardon?
Are their reports editable? So can we actually add things in there if we wanted to?
It's not.
It's just automatic. spit it
Static.
out. That's kind of why I go to List Track's great.
Use it as part of your.
Yeah. I've found that people like seeing the different platforms.
Yeah.
So when I get a snapshot, I snapshot the MLS, how many agents. The thing that I hate is having to explain why somebody hid the listing. Because agents can hide listings. And I don't ever know why. It's I don't know why they would do that. So you get the MLS snapshot of how many agents saw it, how many clients through their portal saw it. And then you go to Zillow. You guys have all seen it. Saves, views. You can go day by day. You go month by month. Realtor.com has a very small section at the bottom of your listing that will kind of tell you views. Redfin, same thing. It'll show how many people looked at it through there. And then my social media and my AdWorks or my Google ads, depending on which one I'm using. You can get all that data and then you can share it with them to show like, hey, this is how many people are looking. You can use if you're Premier Properties because of the price point. They also have a way to track that. If you go into your account, you can see how many people looked at it. You know, New York Times, online real estate. It'll show views. I don't get a lot of people asking about those. I'll tell them they're Premier Property and I'll get it listed. I'll send them the link to New York Times or Barron's or Market Watch, but not very often. And then people always ask like, well, you guys aren't that big a company, you know, like, and it's like, well, yeah, we're regional like John L. Scott and we're actually bigger, right? They're even more regional to Eugene, basically, in Southern Oregon. But no, we're not Remax and we're not Sotheby's and we're not, but with leading real estate, which I think it's the last page in there, we actually have a bigger footprint than all those companies being part of leading real estate. And yes, John L. Scott is part of that too. You don't have to say that, right? But when you're comparing to the Remaxes and the Sotheby's of the world, because those are the two big names people bring up, if they're really worried about, you know, national, international marketing, then you have a little bit of ammo there to go over with a client that's worried about that reaching that far. You know, I found if you zero in on, because you can go to Zillow and you can look at, like, after the first 2 weeks, I'll normally look at like what markets are viewing it the most outside of ours, and then I'll go in and reassess where I'm targeting. So if it's Denver or if it's Salt Lake or if it's Boise or if it's Portland.
Yeah.
So if you go into Zillow dashboard as the listing agent, it'll show you like what markets are viewing it. And sometimes no other market is viewing it, you know, but it will show you like what the biggest, it'll show you like if it's men or women, age, like, yeah, the demographic. And if you have trouble or you can't find it, let me know. I'll help you I'll help you go through it. I know that if you're willing to pay for the showcase, you know, Zillow Showcase, which I suggest if you have a listing, you're like, yeah, I can sell this and it's going to sell quick. We all know that Zillow agents are getting those calls because people are just clicking. You can do that and you get even more detail you can share with your client. But if you can get a little bit of that detail, whether it be from Zillow or the MLS or your social media posts, and you really can see where, like, if it's a listing, somebody from Seattle, or not somebody, but people from Seattle are zeroing in on outside of our market, that's the market you want to flood. And that can be, you know, that can be to the Windermere offices, an email flyer. That can be calling or emailing the principal brokers, the Windermere, hey, who are your top producers? And because they normally have the people moving out, right? So those touches can help. And again, I'm not saying I do all this, but it's good to mention to your potential client, you have this ability and you're willing to do it. Because really, a lot of people think, you know, put it on and then we sit and twiddle our thumbs until it's pending.
What
right?
Showcase exactly?
So instead of you just being at not even you, but the company being this little section of like presented by Windermere Van Vliet, it'll actually have your picture, your name, your phone number right there on the front. They also boost the ad. So when you search in a place for your showcase, you're going to come up first. So I can't remember how much they are. I think they're like $500.
$450.
$450.
And today we learned also in our area, Grants Pass and Jacksonville, it's only 0.7% of agents here are on Showcase.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's a
like,
great
on Zillow-
opportunity.
So on Zillow, yeah, when it says connect, I would like to tour this, it automatically goes to a buyer agent, but when you showcase it, it'll actually have the listing agent.
Yeah. Instead of it going to a,
50 per listing?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you go off market and then come back on, you don't have to pay again. As long as you're still the listing agent, you were the original listing agent, they will put it back on as a showcase again. And there's some stipulations. I think you used to have to do a 3D tour. I don't know if you have to do it. You have to do a 3D tour or a video.
You do.
You have to do 3D.
You have to do 3D, and they said
I-
Matterport, they don't bother using Matterport, it doesn't
Okay, 'cause
work with.
I don't have a 3D tour on one and it's showcased.
Oh.
I did a video tour and they
Yeah,
accepted it,
you
so I don't know if
guys
that
said to
changed.
us that it had to be 3D, right, you guys? It had to be 3D, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
They said you
Yeah.
could do like a 2-minute video tour.
yeah.
But David, have you had luck with getting calls with the showcase one? Have you gotten more calls, do you feel like, than if it was not showcase?
No, but to be honest, we've only done it on some really high end. And there's not a lot of buyers out there for those either. So it's not like I'm getting showings, but I'm not getting calls. It was really for the client.
I was gonna say, the majority of what you do, AdWorks and everything is for the
For the
client.
client.
It's just so that.
I know,
they
I
can work
know,
it hard for them.
I know other agents in other markets
So
who
that-
use it and they use it on their like normal, like if our normal market's 550, right? If that's our selling market, busiest market, like they'll use it on that and they have really good data to back up like it being helpful for them, like they are getting the calls. But yeah, it's really to show the clients love seeing their own stuff.
And then also to promote yourself.
Yeah, and you get to promote yourself as the listing agent and you might get a call off that. But yeah, I think the marketing where you get to be front and center is really that's your bread and butter as far as your marketing. Because we all know unless you want to go buy an ad on the side of a bus or a billboard, there's really no way to market you. Your signs in the ground are number one. That's going to spread that your credibility really. I mean, when I started, we had 5 or 6 really seasoned agents in the office who were selling everything in Jacksonville. It's one of the reasons I picked Jacksonville. It was like writing was on the wall. You can't sell. You could, but none of them were going to want to sell real estate well into retirement years, right? So if I went in there and showed my worth, not only may I get some referrals down the road, but I got to learn from people who already have a proof of concept and have proved it works. It was kind of exciting, not to like brag or anything, but Devin came up to me yesterday. They had run numbers for Jacksonville zip code, and Sandy and I have a bigger footprint than General Scott combined.
That's nice.
So it's like, and that was just last year, which again, record year for commercial selling in Jacksonville, that sort of thing. But it's nice. I mean, when we started, Doug's signs were everywhere.
Yeah.
In Jacksonville. I mean, he was the bag boy at Van Ways before Ray's was Van Ways. So like he started there, had a reputation of somebody who kind of worked his way up, and we literally sold 10 times as much real estate as him in Jacksonville this last year. And that really wasn't, anything other than trying to do the job, signs in the ground and marketing ourselves. I'd say the last thing that I would share as far as credibility side of it is get involved with some charity of some sort. Not to expect any deals out of it, but people hear your name equated with something else. They're going to either look you up or they're going to talk to somebody and they're going to find out what you do because you're supporting what they love. And then it may not even get you a referral straight from that, but it gets your name, out there. When I started doing Run with Grace, I didn't know they did radio ads, but since I've had so many people who still listen to local radio, like I hear your ad all the time. I was like, I have an ad. What are you talking about? It's like, oh, sponsoring Run with Grace. And it's like, so just that sort of thing. And not only that, but I think the more successful you become, the more you should give back to community that's making you successful. So
Thank you so much, David.
yeah, you guys are welcome to reach out anytime.
Yeah.
Is there any questions? Anything else that I didn't touch on?
Question, and that is, does the general public know how everything has changed for all of us? As far as,
Not generally, as far as like commissions and that sort of thing. And no, they ask. A lot of them have never heard, or they just hear they don't have to pay somebody anymore. So you have to go over that, And again, I'm very honest with them. Like it's a more paperwork. Actually, it's not more paperwork. It's now put into the sales agreement to get to the same conclusion we already had with the listing agreement before. But I know that was like quick fire. So if you guys have questions anytime, want to grab lunch or coffee or anything, I'm always happy. So, yeah.
Want to take you? Everything on.
Yeah.
Are there an extra one or not?
We can copy one at the office.
We can do that. I like that.
Yeah, and Gary, I've got it.
Oh, you do?
So, yeah, I can print it out for you.
Okay.
You want this?
Was there any questions?
Any questions? No.
Okay.
We got a huge.
Hopefully it feels like I'm rattling, so.
I